Wayne is a New Zealander with a doctorate in geology from Victoria University. And in 1977, Wayne became a Touch for Health instructor. And by 1980 decided to train as a biokinesiologist. And for 30 years, he was based in Bellingham in Washington in the United States, where he taught kinesiology classes internationally in 23 countries. In the 1990s, he founded Wellness Kinesiology and now has developed more than 24 wellness kinesiology classes. In 2000, Wayne became one of 3 International Kinesiology College faculty members for Touch for Health in the US. And then in 2010, Wayne moved to the United Kingdom to get married, where he's living, and he established the Wellness Kinesiology Institute. He is also the IKC faculty for Russia, Ukraine, and Hungary. And today, Wayne is going to be talking to us about the 8 extra meridians.
Thank you, Jackie. And it's great to see people from many, many different parts of the world, including a few of my faculty members in Belgium, in Italy, let's see, France, Switzerland, place like that. Anyway, so I'm in the process of having a lot of the wellness kinesiology courses approved by the Personal Development School Board. And this time I chose to talk about the 8 extra meridians. First, I'm assuming that people don't know very much about the 8 extra meridians. If you already know a lot, some might know more than me, forgive me, but I'll assume you don't know anything. So why are the 8 extra meridians less well known? Now, there are a number of reasons for that. One is that collectively, they're referred to by a number of different names. And so when you're reading books about the 8 extra meridians, it's sometimes hard to keep track of what's going on. And each meridian itself can have numerous names. 6 of these meridians don't have their own acupuncture points. So those are the 3 primary reasons, and we'll look at each of those in turn. So if you look at the names of the 8 extra meridians, here we have irregular vessels, marvelous meridians, curious vessels, strange flows, 8 extraordinary meridians, 8 miscellaneous channels, 8 extra channels, 8 extra meridians. I chose the simplest, 8 extra channels, but the fact they're called marvelous, curious, strange flows, extraordinary indicates that there's something special about these meridians, and that's what I hope to put across to you today. If we take just one of these meridians, I've chosen vital. I've called it the vital meridian. It's also known as vital channel, penetrating channel, chong mai, things like that. If you look at some of the names, you get an idea of what it does, because it's referred to as a C of the 12 meridians, meaning that it feeds energy into 12 regular meridians that we work with in Touch for Health. The C of the arteries and meridians, regulator and de-obstruction, so it clears obstacles out of the meridian system. Now, how are the 8 extra meridians related to the 12 regular ones that we work with in Touch for Health? So let's first look at the Touch for Health model. In Touch for Health, we work with 14 meridians. 12 of them are referred to as regular meridians. They're the ones that make up the wheel that we have in Touch for Health. They're the ones that we use in the 5-element model. However, we have 2 additional meridians, central and governing. Central and governing are not part of the wheel. They're not part of the 5-element model because they're actually part of the 8 extra meridians, although a lot of people in Touch for Health don't recognize that. And they themselves flow continually and are connected in a figure of 8 pattern. The one thing about these 14 meridians and why they're used in most kinesiologies is that they have their own acupuncture points. However, there are 6 extra meridians. They're less well known, and one of the reasons is because they don't have their own acupuncture points. They share points with bladder, kidney, other meridians as they cross them. Now, the way the Chinese see these related is they view the 12 regular channels as like rivers and streams of water flowing through the body continually, whereas the 8 extra channels or 8 extra meridians are referred to as like reservoirs or lakes, so the energy is there and can be tapped into as energy is required in the other regular channels. So they're reservoirs to feed and regulate the others. So as I point out, Touch for Health is a 14 meridian system, and most kinesiologies are the 12 regular meridians and the central and governing. However, most of my early training was in biokinesiology, which is a 20 meridian system, the 12 regular meridians and the 8 extra meridians. So why are the 8 extra meridians important? One is that balancing the 8 extra meridians, you get to balance all 20. This is one of the evidences I had even before I started developing my work on the 8 extra meridians. This is from an author called Thie. She's the founder of Jinshindo, and this is a quote from her. If this regulatory system of 8 strange or psychic channels, so we're talking about the 8 extra meridians, were always functioning properly, there would be no problem. They would continuously adjust and regulate the 12 organ meridians. These would be balanced, the key flow would be smooth and unimpeded, and the body would be harmonious. So in her experience, she found if she balanced the 8 extra meridians, or what she called the 8 strange flows, it balanced all the 20 meridians. And that's been my experience as well. Now, another reason for their importance is because they're associated with major organs in the body, many of which we do not work with in Touch for Health. So if we look at some of the organs associated with the 8 extra meridians, we find the hypothalamus, the anterior and posterior lobes of the pituitary gland, pineal, thymus, spleen, adrenals, eyes, ears. And when you look at these ones up top, the first 4, these are the major parts of the hormonal system. Hypothalamus on top, feeding information to the anterior, posterior pituitary, and then from there to the adrenals, thyroid, etc. So these are regulatory in terms of organ functions. Here's a quote from Royston Lowe. Royston Lowe, I'm not sure whether he's still alive. He's a British acupuncturist, wrote the book, The Secondary Vessels of Acupuncture, primarily on the 8 extra meridians. And he says that in his experience, the vital meridian is possibly the most important vessel in the entire body. Well, we don't work with that in Touch for Health. That's one of the 8 extra meridians. However, in biokinesiology, which was most of my early training, John Barton had to correlate the 8 extra meridian, the vital meridian, with the hypothalamus, which is right up the top of the endocrine system. So that also makes sense. Now, there's another reason why they're important, is that in terms of the Chinese understanding of how the meridian system got established, their conclusion is that the 8 extra meridians got established first. Now, in Touch for Health, just to backtrack, the first book came out in 1973. I took my first training in 76 based on that particular book. At that time, we didn't have the wheel. We didn't have the 5-element model. We just balanced muscles according to geographic location in the body. Then later, the wheel and 5-element model were added in. When they were added in, over a period of time, it became apparent that if we balanced the supraspinatus and teres major first, that was more beneficial than if we just left them until after we'd worked with the wheel and the 5 elements. So from my thinking, that implied that somehow the central and governing meridians were more important than the others, although I didn't have any other real evidence to back it up back in 1976. Now, when we look at the embryonic development from the concept of traditional Chinese medicine, they believe that the first meridian to be established is the vital, which provides the vertical axis within the embryo. So just imagine you've got thousands of cells multiplying rapidly, but it's just a blob, no arms, no legs. So you can't have meridians that require arms and legs, but you have a vertical axis defined by the vital. Then the belt is the only meridian of all 20 that runs around the body. That divides it into an upper or superior portion, inferior blob of cells. Then once the central and governing meridians become established, the central comes up the front, defines the ventral plane, the governing comes up the back or define the dorsal plane. And so you've got those 4 meridians give you an orientation for those blob of cells that are developing very rapidly. Then once you get the arms and legs starting to develop within the embryo, there's the vital meridian that can then feed information into those appendages and start giving rise to the additional 4 extra meridians. So they believe that all 8 extra meridians are established first, then the 12 regular meridians develop after that. Now, how can you prove that? I don't know, but it's hard to have a kidney meridian if there are no legs in the fetus, for example. So those are 3 of the reasons why I consider the 8 extra meridians to be important. Now, if we look at primary function to regulate the 12 regular meridians, first generation meridians would include vital, belt, central, and governing. Central meridian, in Touch for Health, we recognize it's like the storehouse of the yin energy. Governing has a corresponding role in terms of yang energy. And when we looked at the names for the vital meridian, you notice it was called the C of the 12 meridians. In fact, the lower part of its pathway is connected to all the yin meridians, and the upper part to all the yang meridians, according to Royston Lowe. And as I said, vital meridian is probably the most powerful, and it's responsible for controlling distribution of hereditary energy throughout the body also. So very important. Now, in terms of muscle tests, most of my training, as I said, was in biokinesiology. At the time of that training, there are 368 muscles, tendons, and ligaments we knew about to be associated with the 8 extra meridians. But they didn't all lend themselves to manual muscle testing, so I went through to choose at least 3 manual muscle tests for each meridian. I wanted them in the upper body, also in the lower body, and I wanted each of the organs associated with the 8 extra meridians to be represented by the muscle tests that I was using. And then I threw in a few others because of interesting symptoms such as morning sickness. So that gave me a total of 35 muscles, tendons, and 1 ligament in the first book I put out on the 8 extra meridians back in 1983. Now, when I put that book together, I was drawing on traditional Chinese medicine in terms of meridian pathways. And then later, when I put out a subsequent book called The 8 Extra Meridians, added in key points, coupled points. From the biokinesiology research, I already had the positive and negative emotions associated with each of those muscle tests. I had the nutrients and biokinetic exercises. What I didn't have were neurolymphatic points, neurovascular points, spinal reflexes, and so I had to do the research over a long period of time to define where they were, and then to synthesize it into a meridian balancing system like Touch for Health, but just dealing with the 8 extra meridians and something different from what John Barton of biokinesiology was doing. So there's contact information. If you have any questions that you don't want to ask publicly in front of everyone, you have an email, wayne.topping@yahoo.co.uk, to contact me.
Thank you, Wayne. That was very interesting. So we're open for questions for Wayne. Flor.
Wayne, do you remember why you started doing research and creating the course on the 8 extra meridians?
Yeah, that was interesting. Thanks, Flor. Because I read a book once by George Bow. I've forgotten the title, but it was on acupuncture. And in that particular book, he mentioned there are 3 levels of pulses at the wrist. And remember, my background was Touch for Health, and I thought, hey, there are shallow level pulses for the yang meridians, deep level pulses for yin, and here's someone saying, no, there's a 3rd level pulses. And so that got me curious. So I checked, and yes, there was an intermediate level pulse. I was already aware of pulses in the pads of the thumb and on both sides for the central governing meridian. So I thought, is it possible that the other 6 extra meridians might be represented at those other 6 pulse positions? And using emotions, was able to make a correlation. So then once I found I could use the pulses of the wrist to check all 20 meridians, not just the 12 we use in Touch for Health, then the next obvious thing would be, well, it'd be nice to have muscle tests that we can use as indicators for these particular meridians. And that's what got started back in probably about 1982 or so. So thanks for the question.
Thank you.
Melanie is saying, thank you, Wayne, a lovely perspective to see how the 8 extra meridians came into being. That's from Melanie Bennett. Okay, so we had a question came. I don't think Joy Hanlon, who had registered, is here. Joy, are you here? No, just in case she was, and I had missed her name on the bringing people in. But Joy did send a question in advance, and it was, where can I get a copy of Wayne's book?
The workshop manual is not available outside of a workshop. The reason is because it has a lot of material that most people would not be able to use. So, and it's a more advanced class because it requires biokinetic exercises, work with nutrition in a very specific way, working with acupuncture points. And so in one case, for example, there's a school in Geneva, and they really wanted me to teach this class. They didn't have some of the prerequisites. So what I did on that occasion is I tacked on an extra day in front of the class. We covered biokinetic exercises, nutritional testing, how to find out whether the body could handle nutrients, how we use the acupressure points, like the key points in that. So I gave them that. Then we did the 3-day 8 extra meridian class. But it's best actually if people have the biokinetic exercises, at least one of the wellness courses on work with nutrition, the emotions, before we get into this class, because this class sort of pulls together a lot of the other courses.
We have a comment in here from Sasha, and it says, this is amazing information. These are key to the stress system, HPA axis, with the question mark.
Yes. Yes, because you've got the hypothalamus at the top, and it sends signals to the anterior pituitary, which then releases hormones to drive the adrenals and thyroid function. So all the stress-related responses within the body are dictated from the hypothalamus down.
Thank you.
And guess what? The hypothalamus, the anterior, posterior pituitary, and adrenals all associated with the 8 extra meridians. Comment, just because I mentioned in passing that the 8 extra the central and governing are paired. We know that in Touch for Health, but a lot of people don't realize that they're actually linked. So the Chinese believe that the meridian starts at CV1, and just imagine them below the pubic bone, coming up the front, becoming less and less yin, then down inside the body, if you can visualize that, to GV1, where it's most yang, coming up the spine as the governing, down inside the body to CV1. So you've got a close figure of 8, if you can imagine that, and so continually flowing.
Yeah, very good. So I have a question. Like, it was really interesting how you explained to us from a Touch for Health point of view that the reason that we would balance central and governing before we would do a 1-point balance, for example, and how that might be working when we think about the 8 extra meridians. My question is, if we balance the 8 extra meridians, if that balances everything, why do we do, say, a 12 or 14 meridian balance?
That's because most people don't know that they can balance it all with 8.
Yeah. But I'm just wondering why the 8 isn't like the top go-to balance.
Well, the reason they are not is because 6 of the meridians don't have their own acupuncture points. Because they don't have their own acupuncture points, they haven't been as useful for a lot of people.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that's why, plus they have all the different names. If
Yes.
they're all given a single name, then they'd be a lot more popular. But it's very confusing when you look at the literature trying to figure out which meridian is being described. When you look at Pinion or the Wade-Gillies romanization of the meridian names.
Yes, thank you.
It's just lack of knowledge and things like that. But I've got a number of instructors on board that are looking at me right now. And it's our job to start changing that and put this into a broader kinesiological audience.
Yes, because that's really powerful, isn't it, to think we can do that?
Yeah.
Thank you. That sounds fascinating.